Okay guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm here with Danny Joe Fitness. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about nutrition, specifically talking about how he controls his diet, what he does, how many meals he eats, his macros, as well as comparing that to my macros, what I eat throughout the day, and just giving you guys a little bit more knowledge and insight as to what we do to get lean throughout the year and what I do to stay shredded year round. To start things off, I'll get Danny to introduce himself, say a little bit about what he's done in the past. He's actually a Hollywood celebrity trainer, so he's trained some big names in Hollywood that you guys may have seen on TV or movies. So I'll let him explain that and explain sort of a little bit of a background.
Hi, I train a lot of Hollywood stars. I was the main trainer for G.I. Joe 1 and 2 from Paramount Pictures. Trained the Storm Shadow, the Snake Eyes and all that. And I was the former trainer for the rapper The Game. I was on a tour with him for roughly about 60 days.
So specifically for this video, we wanted to talk about ketogenic diet, or our use of the ketogenic diet. You guys have seen me say that I've used it for the past, 3 years now, talking about how I use a low carb diet to stay lean year round while building muscle. But there's definitely something here that Danny's doing a little bit different, but there's different adjustments that can be made based on your lifestyle, your goals, and all these different things. So the biggest thing that I think we want to start with is that Danny eats one meal a day rather than eating, a typical bodybuilder would eat 4, 5, maybe even 6 meals a day. Me only eating 2 to 3, but he only eats 1, which is obviously very different than what you would usually hear. I'll let him explain his theory around that and how he uses the ketogenic diet and OMAD, which is 1 meal a day, to make gains.
So basically, I'm a big fan of fasting, and I'm another big fan of training while fasted, because as a bodybuilder, I always believe that when you train fasted, you lose muscle because your body uses muscle as energy. But more study I did over time, I realized that your body actually store body fat as energy when you're training fasted. And in order for you to preserve the muscle mass you have, your body they make more growth hormone, which is the critical hormone when you're trying to build muscle. And that's the reason why I fast for roughly about 23 hours, and then I eat in a 1 hour period, which is roughly about 3,000 calories. And my macro is roughly about 250 grams of fat, roughly about 100 grams of protein. The reason why I go kind of low, or should I say very low for a bodybuilder, because my fat intake is extremely high, the protein, even though it's slightly lot lower than the typical bodybuilders, my body does not use muscle as energy at all because the fat intakes are so high, the calories are so high, and my carbohydrate intake per day is roughly about anywhere between 30 to 50 grams of carbs.
One thing that's very different as well is how low his protein intake is. Personally, I keep mine at 1 gram per pound of body weight. That's where I found is the best for me for my training and progression. He has some different opinions on 1 meal versus 2 to 3 meals for staying lean. Since his work is so intensive, he's working all day from like 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning all the way until 6 o'clock at night. Using just 1 meal a day is very convenient for him, as well as the mental clarity that you get from not having the constant insulin spikes, constantly being lethargic from having to digest food. So do you think that using just 1 meal versus using 3 or even more meals than that helps you stay clear while you're working?
So let me tell you the pros and cons, because there is no such thing as perfect diet. You have to find a diet where it's suitable for your lifestyle. You agree, right? Yeah. So for me, because I have a crazy schedule, because I'm working all day, I need to be stay on focus. My energy level cannot drop a lot because I charge a ridiculous amount of money to my clients. So in order for me to satisfy my clientele, give them the best results possible for their high paying session, I have to be pumped up. I have to be wired. I have to give them everything that I got. In order for me to give that to my clients, my energy level has to be very high and consistent. That's the exactly reason why I do 1 meal a day when I go home, because if I don't eat, my insulin level stays low. Basically, it becomes 0. So my energy level is very consistent. After 16 hours, if I'm working or working out, my body is trying to preserve the muscle that I have. After 16 hours, your body's release human growth hormone more. And that's why my energy level is always high and consistent. And plus, when I'm working out, the pump is insane. The con is, it's very difficult for you to get shredded like Tristan if you do 1 meal a day, because you're consuming an extremely high amount of food. So your body does turn that food source into a stored body fat, even though I go on ketogenic diet or I go extreme low carbs. So if you're trying to get shredded like Tristan, I recommend doing 2 meals a day, still fast, 16 hours, and then maybe have a lunch and dinner. But if you wanna feel fantastic, if you wanna have energy level consistent throughout the days, I highly recommend doing 1 meal a day.
I know that I feel better using 2 to 3 meals a day because I do prefer having a little bit of protein before I go and train. Generally speaking, it's like an hour to 2 hours before I go and train max, because I feel like when I don't have that protein or the calories or energy, I'm not as strong during my training. Now I know your training is largely based around squeezing, contracting, so you aren't using very extremely heavy weight. Obviously weight is relative to the exercise and motion you're doing and the person. Do you find that doing only 1 meal a day affects your strength at all, or do you think that having a meal before would be better for strength performance?
Oh, for strength performance, you do need a food before training, yes. But I'm a big fan of utilizing lightweight, higher repetition for isolated movement. The reason is because whenever I train Hollywood stars, I cannot afford for them to get hurt. Because once they get hurt, it's over for them. So with them, I utilize the lightweight, higher repetition. I don't have them eat before training. So basically, a lot of my clientele, they do 1 meal a day. They fast for the whole day because for them, it's very important for them to feel good, energized, and plus the autophagy effect.
Based on your goals, then you can decide whether you want 1 meal, 2 meals, 3 meals, etc. You can see how you feel. And I think while using dieting as a tool, you have to kind of adjust to what you need. So one day you may need more, another day you may need less, but also over time you can see how your body reacts to different things. Use yourself sort of as a test. So if I'm trying to really get shredded, whether it be going into a competition or if I just have a photo shoot or something, I'll actually increase my protein and increase the amount of calories that are coming from my protein and decrease the amount that are coming from my fats. Protein has a thermogenic effect, so you're actually gonna burn more calories from just eating the protein. But if I am trying to build more muscle and increase my performance, then I'll just use my fat as the lever and increase that. So I'll have a little bit more calories and I may not be as shredded, like I may not be down in that 6%, 5% range, but that's not necessary when you're just trying to build muscle and maintain your high performance levels. Danny, as he said before, was talking about how he keeps his protein lower and then his fat higher. Why exactly is that?
First of all, it's health purposes. Because the higher you consume your protein, your digestive system has a harder time on the body, breaking down the protein source. And for my clientele, I always think about their longevity and then how they feel. And then I realized it over time as a bodybuilder, when my protein was high, I felt very slow and sluggish.
So when you say your protein was high, how high was it before?
300 grams a day.
300 grams.
Yes.
And how much did you weigh back then?
170-ish.
So that's a lot of protein. That's like 1.75 times his body weight. That's a lot of protein for your body to digest. Right now, you said your macros are around 80% fat and 20% protein?
More like 70% fat and 25% protein.
25 and then 5% carbs just coming. And most of those carbs, are they coming from vegetables or are they coming from
more like fibers?
Anything that he's having in carbs, it's not usually just it's not rice and sweet potato. It's more like vegetable, like kimchi and things like that.
Kimchi, like vegetables and like anything that's extremely high in fibers.
So even then, net carbs, he's way lower because fiber obviously is just indigestible. So it's basically flowing through your system. So if he's having, let's say 30 to 50 grams of carbs a day, he may only be having 15 to 20 actually net because it's so high in fiber. Personally, with me, I keep my macros more close to the 65, sometimes even as low as 60 to 40 to 35% protein. So 65% fat and then 35% protein. I feel better with higher protein. I feel like my recovery is better, but at the same time, I do see what you're saying with throughout the day when I'm eating more protein, my body is a little bit less clear, but I'm trying to optimize that one session or that one performance. So it is very individual. You have to see what your goals are. If you're trying to last the entire day, using OMAD or 1 meal a day may be beneficial to you. But if you're trying to increase your performance for that one training session, that 1 2-hour session, or even 2 2-hour sessions a day, however much you're training, then maybe having a little bit higher protein and increasing your meal frequency may benefit you. So even though Danny's protein is only at 100, which is less than 1 gram per pound of body weight, when you eat ketogenically, ketones actually have a protein sparing effect. So let's say you're only having 100 grams of protein per day, you're only consuming that, but you're actually sparing more. So you're technically having more grams of protein than you're consuming, just because of that protein sparing effect. So we talked a little bit about why you prefer ketogenic diet specifically. Why do you choose to use it with your clientele that are such high levels, you know, people who are movie stars and things like that?
Because first of all, with ketogenic diet, you feel great. Pretty sure you agree with me on that, right?
Sure, yeah.
So first of all, you feel great. And second of all, I personally, with my experience with training over 5,000 clientele, that you lose stored body fat the fastest. I personally think I wouldn't say it's the best, but I would say it's the fastest way to burn body fat as energy.
So with your clientele style of work and what they actually do for their jobs, obviously they can't risk injury.
Yes.
And a huge thing about the ketogenic diet is obviously with low carbohydrates, you're lowering the amount of inflammation, the amount of water you're holding onto. So do you think that lowering that inflammation helps with preventing injuries for people that are at such a risk of losing their jobs if they get injured?
Very true. You feel good, you feel fantastic with ketogenic diet because you reduce the amount of inflammation a lot, and you sleep better. You sleep better, and those two things, it does lead you into feeling fantastic throughout the days.
With this lower amount of inflammation and the lowered risk of injury, your longevity is a way higher rate of longevity because there's zero risk of injury. Your inflammation is low while you're training, your joints aren't at risk, so you're able to train even if you do choose to increase the weight like I have. My inflammation is so low that I'm not risking my joints because of it. Regardless of if you're training with light weights or if you're training with heavier weights, the ketogenic diet can be altered or moderated to what you need. So another thing about the ketogenic diet that I myself, as well as my brother, have experienced anecdotally is that your skin clears up so much. Prior to Tyler's show, before he went to China for his bodybuilding show, he wanted to make sure that his skin was very clear, and he was dealing with a little bit of breakouts, acne, you know, typical stuff that a teenager or even some adults deal with. But as soon as he switched from a higher carbohydrate, higher protein diet to a lower carb, more moderate protein diet, you notice that his skin absolutely cleared up. So for someone like Danny, who's working with people who are gonna be in movies and TV shows, and their appearance means so much, using a ketogenic diet will just make sure that their skin is completely clear. Obviously, calories do matter. It's not just, let me just go 80% fat, 20% protein, eat 6,000 calories a day. Calories still do matter, but sustainability wise, I find that I'm able to get more full off of fats, whether I'm having 2,200 calories worth of higher fat versus higher protein. And I find that being in that deficit, if I'm in, I think 2,200 is around where my caloric deficit is, or just around there. If I'm getting all of those calories from fat versus protein and carbs, I feel way more full throughout the day. So it's much more sustainable. So the difference between a ketogenic diet and a higher carbohydrate diet is that with carbs, obviously you're gonna be spiking insulin constantly and blood sugar constantly, which actually causes cravings. So with a keto diet, obviously if you're eating one meal a day, you're only spiking your insulin and your blood sugar once a day. And even then you're not spiking as much as you would if you're having that much carbs in your diet. Food cravings wise, I get zero food cravings for sweets or sugars or anything like that. I'll know if I'm hungry based off of, okay, am I gonna go eat a steak? Am I hungry to eat a steak or something like that? Something that's real food rather than craving more sugar, more carbs, more cravings, more cheat meals, which a lot of people obviously deal with when they're trying to diet down. So sustainability wise, if you're able to cut those carbs down, not get this constant spiking of blood sugar, then you're gonna be able to withhold your diet for a longer period of time. So Danny right now has, what, 3,000 calories in that one meal?
Anywhere between 3,000 to 4,000,
Which,
depending on how I live.
which is a lot of calories, and it obviously isn't just easy to eat that many calories in one meal. Most people have trouble fitting that into 3 meals. So how hard was it at the beginning to get that many calories in just using one meal a day versus using more?
So first of all, you can consume 4,000 calories in one meal from the get-go. So stomach, it works very similar to your muscle. You have to train them properly. So rather than starting with 3,000 or 4,000, start low and starting with 2 meals. So each meal consume roughly about anywhere between 1,000 to 1,200, and then slowly increase to 1,500 per meal, which is gonna total up to 3,000. And then switch up to one meal but of course you need to start with the lower calorie than 3,000. So start with anywhere between 2,000 to 2,500, and then gradually increase your calorie as your stomach gets used to it.
So I think that's a lot of information for you guys to take down as far as diet, and you guys can learn from. But I just want to ask Danny if there's any other like last information that you think it would be important for people to learn or know.
Basically, I've been a trainer for 20 years. I'm 37 right now. This is the most important thing that I learned over training people for 20 years. There's no such thing as the perfect diet. Find what works for you. How? Try a lot of different diet. Observe and then make a journal what works best for you, how you feel, the progress, the transformation, whatever it is. The perfect diet is a diet that where you're able to maintain it the rest of your life. So it cannot be a temporary thing. A perfect diet is a diet that works for you and you're able to maintain that for a very long time. Do a lot of research, try a lot of things, be open-minded, and find the diet that works for you guys.
This is 100% the perfect time. A lot of you guys have time on your hands right now, so this is the perfect time to look at and assess what your goals are and what diet will work best to fit those goals. Don't be afraid to try new things, because obviously the ketogenic diet has worked for both of us, but that doesn't mean that a higher carbohydrate, a higher protein diet wouldn't work for someone else. So in a time like this where you may not be able to go in a gym, the cool thing about the ketogenic diet is it actually does spare muscle, as Danny was talking about earlier. So you're less likely to lose your muscle mass while you're in this training period. You guys can try it out for yourselves. I hope you guys learned something from this video and were able to enjoy it a little bit. Make sure you guys check out all of Danny's social media. I think it's just Danny Joe Fitness on YouTube, Danny Joe Fitness on Instagram as well. Make sure you guys check him out. He's got loads of good content, and I guess we'll see you in the next one. Peace.